Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome back to ITProTV. I'm your host, Don Pezet, and you are watching CompTIA IT Fundamentals. In this episode, we're going to be taking a look at peripheral devices because sometimes our computer just isn't good enough, and we need to add more stuff to it. Here to show us how that's done, we've got Mr. Ronnie Wong in the studios with us. Ronnie, thanks for joining.
Don, thank you for having me on the show as we continue to take a look at the idea of some of the different types of hardware, including this idea of peripheral devices. The very fact is you're right. There's no doubt that our computers can do so many different things, but when it comes down to it, it needs additional enhancements to do what we need it to do. So even, let's just kind of give you a for instance here, right? The very fact is, even I go, hey, look, that's something I want to keep, but I want to print it out. If I don't have a printer attached to my computer somehow, I won't be able to do that, and that is an extra device that we call the idea of a peripheral device, which is not directly integrated into the computer or directly attached in some physical way as far as being permanently there. We normally have to do some type of attachment. So that's an example of a peripheral device. So in this episode, we want to make sure that we understand, of course, some of the different peripheral devices that you're more than likely going to be dealing with if you tend to choose the idea of supporting hardware. And also, of course, well, how do those actually get connected to the computers? We'll talk about some different cabling, maybe even some wireless connections too. And then, of course, well, how do we know that everything is actually going to work fine? So we want to make sure that we have this understanding of how these peripheral devices do come together and work with our computer as we start to do something here. So that's what we're going to be talking about today.
All right, now Ronnie, obviously we don't have to use peripheral devices. If I buy a laptop, it will most likely do what I need, but a lot of times businesses have special needs, special equipment they need to add on, or maybe just I personally have hardware that I like to use and I want to add it onto my system. There's a lot of different options that are out there, even within a single thing. So let's say I want to add a specific keyboard. There's a lot of choices that we have to make before we're able to plug in a peripheral. So can you describe some of the different ways that these peripherals attach to a device? Like help us understand that decision?
Sure thing. When it comes down to different attachments of peripherals, especially something like a keyboard, well, we normally have at least a couple of ways that we can do this. When you want to separate it down to two basic categories, we of course can simply plug the device in by using what's directly attached to the keyboard if it has a cable attachment for us, and then we plug it into a port that's going to be on the computer somewhere, or we normally can connect it through some type of wireless connection. And inside of wireless, we can subdivide that out too with different specialty types of wireless connections such as Bluetooth or even radio frequency devices if we choose to do so. So in that instance, you have to make that decision of which one that you actually want. Now, it used to be where keyboards, you just had to have one. To even turn the computer on at one point, and I'm assuming that we still have to have a keyboard to have a computer kind of generate and turn on, and so that we can get access into it. But at one point, you had to have it plugged in. If you had a desktop computer, if you didn't plug it in, your computer would kind of make this nice, weird sound, and then it would just stop in the middle of its process of booting up. But overall, though, a keyboard is our first real basic peripheral device that we tend to connect in so that we can interact. So we normally make a choice of which one that we want. Now, it used to be, of course, the idea of having a nice physical keyboard there and available to us was the way to go. But as we continue to develop in technology, we found the idea of actually being able to sit on the couch when I have my laptop there and just pull the keyboard aside without having to go, oh, I got to move the computer closer, was something that was actually very much efficient and actually very easy to learn how to deal with. So wireless became more popular too, and so we see those options as well.
And that's a big differentiator from how a lot of previous peripherals work, where you don't even necessarily have a cable run. Because in the early days of computing, external hardware was treated the same as internal hardware. It expected it to be there when you push that power button. And if you plugged it in afterwards, good luck getting that to work. Well, fortunately for you, the viewer out there, things have changed a lot. And now we can easily add and remove hardware all throughout the day. We don't have to reboot the computer. I mean, there are some exceptions, right? But that usually deals with internal hardware. With external stuff, we really do have our choice of the market. So if I decide, I want to get a keyboard and I want to add it to my system, I don't really even have to worry about hardly any of the stuff we used to, like compatibility. Pretty much every keyboard is going to be compatible with my computer, thanks to technologies like USB and wireless that have kind of become standardized. Now, Ronnie, USB and wireless are two examples of how systems get connected. I know there's a lot of others that are available too. Some have specialized purposes, some are just because vendors refuse to follow standards.
Right.
There's a lot of different options there. Do we want to kind of run through some of those and get an idea of what's out there?
Sure, let's go ahead and take a look at this example of what we're talking about, right? The very fact is, let's take a look at least at what normally happens when we want to plug in an external device that's going to normally go through what we call a USB port. Now, usually USB ports are going to be just about on every device. Now, just when I say that, I take a look at my own computer. They've changed over time, and so you might actually find out that they're not on every single device, and you have to kind of make them specific to what you want to. So what we can do is we can take a keyboard, and let me grab one right here that I have available to me. And here's just a regular standard keyboard, and on this keyboard is attached in the back, and there is just a regular USB connector, kind of a rectangular connector. And what you're going to look for, of course, is a place on the actual computer to plug this keyboard into. Okay, so I'm just trying to untangle it so I can set this thing down for a moment. And when we plug this in, okay, and I'm just going to plug it into a port that I have available to me. Now we can take a look at my computer screen, and this is what Don was talking about. We don't have to worry too much about whether or not this device is going to at least need to be a lot of configuration, extra configuration that's going to happen. And that is because as soon as I plugged that keyboard in, it went ahead and the operating system detected and said, hey, let me give you an assistant to help make sure that you've actually get this thing attached correctly. So at this point, the installation method, it doesn't require us to have to do a lot of different things. I didn't have to turn the computer off and let the hardware actually be, recognized and then turn it back on. I simply had to plug it into that USB port, and through the USB port, it says, hey, I can't identify whether or not this is actually going to work. If you need to, I want to continue. So that way it actually says, hey, do you want to actually do this? Press the key immediately to the right of the shift key on the left side of the keyboard that can't be identified. So it's actually recognizing that, hey, I don't know exactly what this keyboard is. Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, and that's not really a hardware thing. It knows it's a keyboard. It's ready to accept the keystrokes. You didn't have to do anything special to get it working. But different countries have different arrangements for the keys. So like here in the United States, we use what's called a QWERTY keyboard. If you look at your keyboard, the letters will be Q, W, E, R, T, Y across the top. But if you're in France, you'll have an AZERTY keyboard. It's A-Z-E-R-T-Y across the top. It's a different order of the letters. And so that's what it's trying to figure out here. It looked and it said, hey, it's a keyboard, but I don't know where you put the buttons on that keyboard. You might have swapped them around. But from a hardware sense, this was very simple. Ronnie didn't have to reboot. He didn't have to load special software. He just plugged it in and off it's going. And so that's what really makes things like this really handy. And that connector used is called USB, which is the Universal Serial Bus. It's a connector that's designed to make this whole thing easy. So most of the hardware, would you agree, Ronnie, that most of the hardware out there today is going to use USB?
Yeah, just about every bit of hardware that's out there that people want you to easily be able to plug in and play. I think that's where that technology really comes from. That they don't want you to have to worry about the configuration. They just want you to be able to plug it in and make it work. They're going to be USB based, and that was designed around that idea that we could come up with one standard connector that everybody could put on their devices and not have to worry about whether or not that manufacturer was going to include my particular hardware port on it. They could just go ahead and design their hardware, and then at the other end of that cable, they could make sure, oh, yeah, as long as it uses this port, we'll recognize it. We'll be able to actually do what we need to it, so it makes it very easy.
So Ronnie, I know 9 times out of 10, when we buy an external piece of hardware, it's going to be USB, right? It's just so easy, it's simple, and it works really well. But it's not the only type of cable. 1 time out of 10, right, we're going to go and it's going to be something different. I know you're using a Mac,
right,
and Apple is really pushing their Thunderbolt ports, which use USB-C. It's a different type of USB port. So there are various other cables. So can you walk us through some of those special case scenarios that we might bump into?
Sure. Normally when we start taking a look at that idea of the cable, if we're not taking a look at using the regular standard USB, it's going to be some other port or some other cable that's going to have a different type of connector. So let me give you an example here. I've just pulled up one. And as you take a look, here's one of the particular types of cables that you can end up running into. And on this one, there's a little Thunderbolt that you actually end up seeing right here on the cable itself. And this is what Don was referring to in the Apple devices, where they're trying to standardize around the idea of Thunderbolt as well. So you might see this, and the connector might look similar to another connector that's out there, but you'll end up seeing that Thunderbolt kind of indicates the difference. And these are for their high-speed devices, allows them to plug in not only just different peripherals, just other monitors if they need to, whatever it might be.
And it can be really confusing because like that cable that Ronnie's holding up is actually a Thunderbolt 2 cable.
Right.
Now we have Thunderbolt 3, which uses a different connector, uses the USB-C connector. Do you have one of those, Ronnie?
I have one that's, yeah, very similar, which is right here, okay? So on this one, the connector is a little bit thinner in terms of its connection right here and much smaller. Now, Mac has, of course, always tried to say, look, we want one cable. So every single device now, if you want to plug in, they want this type of connector to go with that so that you can plug in and be able to do this. So even though I just showed you kind of the older one, you'll probably still see that there's many devices out there that will support that. But the newest standard, of course, or the newer one that they want you to be able to do is going to be something like this. It's a flat connector. It allows you to do a lot more with it in terms of speed and capacity. So that's what they want you to go with as well. So the key here, right, on these peripherals is understanding what is on your device itself. Make sure that you buy that particular connector that you need or that cable that you need that will allow you to plug into the computer, okay? And you might find out that you might buy a device like a keyboard that only has that standard USB 2.0 or 3.0 connector. And when it does that, well, you might go, wait a minute, my MacBook or my own device only has that new USB 3. Well, they do sell adapters that will allow you to make that happen. Or you might have to look for that peripheral that says, hey, we'll support this type of connector or cable to make that work. So yeah, just realize that you'll find a lot of these where you'll have to make sure that you pick the right connector to make that work. If not, it's going to be a long day for you because you'll have to hunt around and then you'll realize I probably should have bought another device.
And the sad part is sometimes it's the right connector but the wrong cable. So for example, you might have a standard USB-C cable that's not necessarily a Thunderbolt cable, that they use the same connector, but unless that lightning bolt is on there, that makes a big difference. And then there's various grades of cable too. It does get very, very confusing. That's why when you buy hardware, it normally comes with a cable. And if it does that, you know that's the right cable. Use the cable that it came with. But if you have to replace it, it's very difficult to make sure you get one that meets the specifications that you need.
And Don, you make a great point because we were talking about this probably a few weeks ago where we were going through, and you always see these generic cables that are for sale. And you go, oh yeah, that says it actually will fit and work. And what we found out is by trying those a few times, that either they don't last as long or they don't work as well as they claim to work as an equivalent to what might actually be better from the manufacturer. So you do have to worry about stuff like that, even though they go, oh no, it's a direct replacement, it will work just fine. In reality, sometimes you've got to actually read those kind of reviews and see if it's actually going to work or not. Or you'll do what I've done, which is buy a cheap cable and then after 2 weeks or maybe after a day and a half, it just didn't work anymore. So you do have to worry about cables today much more.
All right, so Ronnie, let's just say I'm fed up with cables.
Right.
I'm tired of it. I'm tired of trying to pick the right one. I want to go wireless, right? So what are our wireless options like in the peripheral world?
Well, in the peripheral world, there's a bunch of different options for us, at least 2 different options. It depends on what you're willing to actually be able to use and do and what's built into your computer. For me, I like the idea of using a wireless that we call Bluetooth. Most of the time, as far as on most modern devices, they tend to have a Bluetooth antenna built into them. For example, on my MacBook, let me show you what I'm talking about here. Okay, so here on my MacBook, I have a little icon in the upper right-hand corner, and it says Bluetooth. And if I open those Bluetooth preferences, you can now see that here it is. That means that this particular one is turned on, and it is sending out this wireless signal, and it is going to try and connect to one of these devices. And it will pair to one of these different devices. You're actually seeing other devices start to pop up here as it starts finding more and more of these devices. And I like this because it's just built in. I don't have to worry about anything else. And once those devices get recognized, then I can make this type of pairing, and that will automatically connect it to the other device. And on my end, I have this older trackpad from my previous MacBook. That's what I kept it from. And it just allows me to not have to worry. Once I allow that pairing to go on, it connects, and now you can see on my keyboard here, or my mouse here, on my screen, I should say, I'm no longer using the trackpad that's directly built into it. I'm now using the one that's off the, that's the peripheral device. And this allows me to move that wherever I need to. So even if I had my laptop across the room, I could still get access to it. I like this because it frees me from any type of tethering that I have ready to go. The wireless, at least for me, with Bluetooth, is actually the way I like it. And the other reason behind this is I don't normally need what we call a dongle. okay, with the Bluetooth. Now, I don't know about every single device, but at least on the MacBook, since it's built in, I don't have to take up one of my few ports that I have available on my MacBook to add that additional dongle in there that takes up one of those ports. Then I can connect an external wireless device as well.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about that dongle, right? So you've been showing us a Bluetooth device, and Bluetooth is built into the laptop, doesn't require a dongle, sounds great. Like, why would I not want to use Bluetooth, right? But the problem with Bluetooth is it's a little bit slow. It's not designed to be fast, and the range is actually pretty short, too. I think it's something like 30 feet, right? So you don't have a huge amount of distance to go before you lose that signal. So you'll see Bluetooth used widely with keyboards and mice, and you'll see it used with sometimes cell phones. Like if I want to quick copy photos from my laptop to my computer, I can use Bluetooth. But beyond that, you really don't see Bluetooth out there because of the being slow as far as straight up bandwidth, but also there's a little bit of latency. And it's hard to see. If you've never heard that term before, latency is the delay that occurs between when you tell a computer to do something and when it actually does it. And if I touch my mouse, I move the mouse ball, I expect the mouse cursor to move instantly. Well, it usually does, or it appears to me as a human to move instantly. But the reality is with Bluetooth, it's got to take that signal, it's got to encode it, it's got to send it over the Wi-Fi, it's got to be decoded on the other side, and then it moves the mouse. There's a small period of time that the lapses between them. If you're doing something like graphics design and you're drawing with one of those pens, if you're one of those professional video gamers and you got your controller and you need to shoot somebody fast, that kind of stuff, they actually do notice that latency, and it drives them crazy. So some devices aren't really well suited for Bluetooth, but that doesn't mean we're out of luck, right, Ronnie? So what do they do instead of Bluetooth when latency is an issue?
When latency is an issue and even range is an issue, right, we tend to also use radio frequency signal instead. And this is when those peripherals are wireless, but they also come with an antenna that allows them to do so. So for example, I have this trackball. I couldn't remember what it was called. Trackball here. I don't use a trackball. I took this one off of Don's desk, so sorry, Don.
I thought it looked familiar.
Yeah. So I've got his trackball here that he uses all the time, and he's a master at doing this here. But it allows him to be able to take this in pretty good, decent range, but also not experience the latency as well. But for him, he's going to lose one of those ports. So for example, on my machine where I only have 2 ports, if I was able to plug this in, I would lose access to one of those ports. That's what I don't like, is that loss of that one extra port that I have. But the nice thing is it does allow that what we wanted to, and it simply opens up here, and it's right here that there's this little tiny USB, once again, USB kind of ruling the day here, and it's got a wireless antenna on this end that allows this to be able to communicate with this device when it's plugged into my machine. So that's what we have the ability to be able to do. I'm simply going to close this up here and do that.
And the reason it needs that is that RF, radio frequency, is proprietary. There's many different frequencies that are out there. So Logitech, who made this mouse, they picked a particular frequency, and so they had to make a hardware dongle that was ready to listen and receive that communication. So when Ronnie plugs that in, it's really interesting what happens here, that when he plugs that dongle in, his laptop will see the dongle as a wired mouse. It doesn't even realize that it's wireless at all. It just sees the dongle. The dongle and the mouse itself take care of all of the encoding and the RF transmission. The computer thinks it's wired. So it's really straightforward technology that doesn't require any special software.
Yeah, it really doesn't. It didn't even have to show up and ask me like the idea of the keyboard, which said, hey, it's a foreign device. It just simply allowed me to start making it work right away, and you can barely see my cursor. If I shake it around, there you go. You can see it, and it's working with the trackball here. I'm having a hard time mousing with my thumb, is what I'm having a hard time doing. But overall, though, it worked very well, right? The ability to do something like this works. Now, Don, sometimes, though, these devices, what if I had, let's say, a wireless keyboard at the same time from the same manufacturer? Could I still use that one device, or do I need to put a separate dongle in there?
It depends, right? So this one's a Logitech one, and Logitech actually makes it. They call it a unifying receiver. Right. So you could have a mouse, a keyboard, a joystick, and they could all share that one receiver. There's other vendors where they're a little more specialized, and you have to have a separate dongle for each one, and then you run into the problem that Ronnie was talking about, which is eventually you run out of ports, right? So you need to add a USB hub or an expansion. Actually, Ronnie's using a USB hub here on the show, where he's only got 2 ports on his laptop, but if you see that little gray box by his left hand, that's adding, what are you adding? Like another 4 ports there.
3 ports, yeah.
So, expanding that functionality, adding more room for peripherals.
Right.
And, Ronnie was complaining, whining, I don't know, about I can't use the trackball with my thumb. That's really the highlight of peripherals. I
Right.
love the trackball. That works great for me. I like being able to have it. Ronnie, are you a touchpad or
I like the
mouse
touchpad
person?
now. Yeah,
Okay.
now that I've gone to the MacBook, the touchpad has just seemed to be more natural for me.
So thanks to peripheral devices, though, we can
doesn't
take
matter.
any system and add on what we're most comfortable with. And so if he hates the trackball, he can just throw it away. Well, don't throw it away. It's mine. But but then he can use the touchpad.
Right.
So you've got that functionality. You can customize it. So actually, I think, Ronnie, you and I have identical laptops.
We do?
But through the use of peripherals, obviously, we add additional different things. Now, some of those things, we've been talking about mice and keyboards.
Right.
Because everybody has mice and keyboards. But there's a lot of other things that we could add, and we could probably spend hours just going over different stuff. But let's hit some of the more popular devices. So what are some of the more popular things we might want to add?
Well, Don, today in social media, and I know how much you love social media.
Love it.
You are a social media king.
I got to go check in my Facebook feed right now.
That's right,
actually.
yeah, you got to be able to do that. It's going to be something like this. Now, most laptops have a webcam built into it. I know it's hard. There you go. Okay, I know it's a little bit difficult to see here, but they have a webcam that's built into like my laptop right here. And it's kind of a multi-function device. It not only records the video for me, but also it actually has a recorder for my voice so that I can speak to it. And so it has a microphone built into it, as well as maybe even speakers, I believe, that may allow the communication to happen as well. So this device itself allows us to be able to do that. Now, you might go, well, if you already have one, why would you choose a peripheral one is kind of the key. Well, that may be that there's actually a better enhancement. In other words, better lens, better whatever it might be is on this that allows me to do HD recording or whatever it might be. And that's what I want to actually understand here, is that I might choose to add this in because I believe that there's better functionality to this.
Yeah, you mentioned the ones built into a laptop, right? If you've ever done any kind of video conferencing with your laptop, the problem is you usually have your laptop monitor tilted back a bit. So the camera's looking right up your nose. So if you're going into some kind of conference or giving a presentation, you don't want people looking up your nose for the whole thing. You can't angle those very well. Add on a camera, and you can. Or in my office, I have a desktop. And so I have a monitor on my desk, and it doesn't have a camera built into it. So I need an add-on to add that camera functionality and get that. Now, Ronnie, you mentioned that this one was multi-function because it also did audio as well, right? But that might not be the most ideal audio that we have, that we might want to even upgrade that.
Right. So even though this might be built into it, you might hear that hollow sound and something else that you want. So if you wanted to upgrade that, Don, can you hand me that,
sure.
That one here? Oh, okay. Now we start upgrading the idea of audio to something more like this, okay? And this one, is the speaker built? The speaker is built into this, so it's not only a recorder, which allows you to speak a microphone, but it also allows you to hear the sound out of it. And this one, of course, has, you can see, a larger, speaker and probably a better microphone built in. And Don, this one actually has a backup, okay? We can physically plug it in, which gives us a nice, good connection. But I also see that there's a little dongle that's actually right here too, that they've given you a little spot to put in so that you can take this wirelessly and then we can turn the actual power on. There's a battery into it. So it's very nice.
And it's got Bluetooth built into it as
well.
Bluetooth,
yeah.
This is another piece of hardware pilfered from my desk.
Yes, it is.
So I do a lot of conference calls in my office, and so this thing comes in really handy for that, because I'll do voice over IP from my laptop. I can grab it, and we can have a high-quality call, which is really nice, and it gives you the functionality to be able to pick and choose. So it's another example.
Yeah, I just noticed that it even has a little stand so that you can even tilt it and angle it.
It's
on
fancy.
Your desk. It actually kind of almost points up directly to where you're talking, so it makes it very nice. So very nice functionality, enhancement of everything that we actually want to be able to do is something that we have here. So it works in the same way. We plug it in, and normally the operating system will work and we'll see it. Now, Don, if it doesn't though, okay, if we don't have that, in other words, what if not my MacBook, but let's say a Windows computer, it goes, hey, I see a device, it looks like it's a recorder, but it's not functioning all that well. I may be able to actually go to the manufacturer's website and download something that we call a driver. Okay, and a driver is important. It's software that allows for the hardware manufacturer's stuff to be able to communicate with the operating system and say, here's all the things that this device can do, and makes it operate with it. So you may find out that even though the device might be recognized as, I see it, I just don't know how to work with it. adding that driver in for that device is probably going to be something that you'll need to do.
Yeah, and I know with that speaker in particular that if you just plug it in, it will pick up as a speaker and a microphone. It'll work right out of the box. But if you go to Logitech, if you go to Jabra's website and download their driver and install it, you get echo cancellation,
Nice.
where it makes sure that your voice doesn't feed back in and create a feedback loop. And that's a nice feature to have, but it's driven by software that's used in conjunction with it. And a lot of peripherals do have that, especially things like scanners and multifunction printers. They almost always have to have software alongside to drive them. Now, Ronnie, I know we have a few more devices that we want to talk about, and we want to talk a little bit more about drivers. It might even be worthwhile to show an example of that. And a few other different ways of configuring peripherals. But I know we're running a little low on time. So what do you think about breaking this one up into a two-part, and we can tackle those other edge cases in the second part?
That sounds great. Sounds like a good idea.
All right. Well, before we wrap up, do you have any other comments to make on the devices that we've seen so far?
Well, just remember that if you are going to end up having to pick out a peripheral that you want to enhance the way that you do the computing, you don't always have to. You can do like I do. I just kind of go Spartan, and I try and learn whatever device that I'm on without adding in additional enhancements. But if you're going to be working with it, all the time, the ability to make it conform to what you want and to compute the way that you want is something that you want to do, because it's going to make it more comfortable for you. You're going to feel more natural about it, and you're going to learn it better as well. So just take the time to actually pick the right peripheral and to make sure that it functions the way that you want, and then you'll be off and ready to go and see a more enhanced computing experience for you.
All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be a wrap for this episode, but do stay tuned because we're going to have a part 2 where we continue talking a little bit more about peripheral devices and things that we can add on to our computers. Definitely want you to stay tuned for that. But for now, signing off for ITProTV, I'm Don Pezet.
And I'm Ronnie Wong.
And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for watching ITProTV.